this image summarizes it up instantly. I'm going to explain a little bit further in detail as to how this makes any sense. This image, if you look, there's no words. There's no words. I don't know what words to use. We share the same being. We share the same being. This is a visual representation of the fact that we share the same being as everything. Look, this is the absolute. This is the relative. The absolute manifests itself into finite form, which is a localization. So imagine this is the absolute. This is like the ocean. This finite form here is the mind, right? Obviously, the image loses its power when it starts to, turn into this little body here. But let's just say that the body is also made of this absolute. The absolute, if you look, you can't have an experience here, you can't have an experience here, you can't have an experience here. You experience here, right? What's that? That's the finite localization of the absolute. That's what the mind is. A localization of the absolute, or an apparent localization. It's like a point of view of infinity. If you experienced infinity in this area, you wouldn't experience anything. It's absolute. It's everything. The minute that you localize or kind of place yourself inside it somewhere, you can start to have an experience. But that means that every other seeming separate person is the absolute. Everyone is the same being if we're going to give any words to it. So we share the same being. There's no distance between anyone. Look, how close is that to that? Nothing. There's no distance, right? Because this is absolute. So we perceive this absolute. When we look at a 2D image representation, this looks like it's at a distance from this part, right? But it's not at a distance from it. You see, it's like, how close is this empty space to the empty space in your room? Zero. It's the same empty space. You see what I mean? So the absolute is not at a distance from anything, and no one's at a distance from anything. This is a 2D representation. We can't stretch it that far, but imagining that this is the absolute, it's at a zero distance. And the only thing that seems to be separate is when we view it from a separate point of view. Look, separate point of view, different person, but it's not. It's the same being. So your consciousness that you're experiencing right now is the same consciousness I'm experiencing right now. And this absolute is consciousness. Now, when we take the path, when I say consciousness, I mean the knowing element of your experience, the part of your experience where there is knowing, where you know things. There's awareness of awareness. You are aware of being aware. That, when we take that in, we lose, so to speak, awareness, because to know this isn't anything. To know this area right here is the absolute. There's nothing to know. So awareness, you could say, recoils in itself. Imagine that this point of view was to absorb back again into the wholeness of the absolute. There's nothing to know. So you can't really know awareness. There's nothing really to know there. So that's what we call the absolute. That's pure. We could consider it this is what the Indian traditions know as pure consciousness. Consciousness that doesn't know anything. And you can't even know consciousness because it can't be known. You can't know. Consciousness can never be known in the same way that the sun can never be lit. But it doesn't mean that it isn't knowing, because in the same way the sun can't be lit, the sun lights itself. It is light, you see? So this is a representation of what the truth is. And if we just live in this understanding, it's really as good as it needs to get. You know that you're just in love. You're in love because you know that everything that you seem to experience outside of yourself isn't really outside of yourself. And because it's not outside of yourself, you understand every single person is you, from a new point of view, or a different point of view, a unique point of view. And you can now enjoy the appearance of duality, even though it's not fundamentally real. You can enjoy it and love it and appreciate it, because that's life, that's beauty, that's true beauty. Beauty is when this guy recognizes this guy as the same being. Well, that's actually what we call love. But if there was another object, let me be a landscape. The experience of beauty is when we lose the sense of separation through the faculty of perception. So love, beauty, and truth, they're the same thing. So if we just live from this place, from this understanding, that's as good as it needs to get. You don't need to do anything more than that, so long as you understand that this is, the primary the primary the primary baseline of the universe, what we would call the universe. So this understanding is extremely important, because this is what's going to make you realize that you're unconditionally happy. Nothing outside of you can ever condition your happiness. This absolute, this is where happiness is. That's what happiness is. Happiness, unconditional happiness is this recognition. It's the understanding that everything in the seeming separate world isn't separate from you and doesn't limit you. And from that point of view, the absolute, because it is already everything, it doesn't resist anything. Resistance is the only place suffering can come from. You can't have suffering if there's no resistance. So if there's no resistance to anything, there's no suffering to anything. And as a wise man once said, with his bald head in a gown, enlightenment is the end of suffering. The Buddha I'm referring to, in case you didn't know. The Buddha said enlightenment is the end of suffering. That's it. What other word do we use for the end of suffering? Happiness. Happiness is the end of suffering, obviously, right? Put two and two together. Happiness is the end of suffering. You're not happy if you're suffering. You're not suffering if you're happy. This understanding is unconditional happiness, because there's no conditions left, because you've recognized what you are. So there's nothing left to limit you. So to even use any words to describe this anymore, this is why I found it at first, we just look at that, it's just nothing to say. There's nothing to say about it. This is why usually the best communication about this is silence. But, for the idiots like me, I like to use words. I have a free community, and I also have a retreat at the end of the year. If you'd like to join, the application's in the link in the description, or you can join the community and get some free sessions with me. Have an amazing day, guys. Take care.